And often in good faith, by the way. Is this Iran deal the new JCPOA 2.0? Is it just like that? I had somebody that was texting me yesterday saying...
tell people what the JCPOA
is. JCPOA was the original sort of nuke deal to try and get Iran to stop their nuclear program that Obama, Hillary Clinton, and John Kerry oversaw, which involved a front-loaded deal filled with pallets of cash that we airlifted over to Iran, right, to bribe them to get them to do what we wanted to. And so a lot of people have been texting me in good faith, genuinely. I want to love this deal. I want to be supportive, but it just feels like the JCPOA 2.0. And I want to explain why that's not true. First of all, it's not front-loaded. So there's no pallets of cash, there's no American money, not one red cent of American money. But there are financial incentives. People hear that and they go, oh, it's just like the JCPOA. My question to them would be, what other levers and mechanisms does the world run on? There's only so many things you can offer as an incentive for good behavior because, guess what? In a deal, both sides need to feel like they're getting something worthwhile. If you're going to make a deal, that's what happens. Now, I think there is an old paradigm when it comes to treaties, like the Treaty of Versailles or whatever, where one side totally concedes defeat and the other says, I'm victorious completely. That's not the paradigm that President Trump is using. President Trump is using a paradigm of a businessman who's trying to make deals that are mutually beneficial, yes, but we get what we want. And what do we want? We want a denuclearized Iran. We want them not to have a nuke so they can blow up Israel, they blow up the Middle East, or blow up Europe, okay? Are you trying to...
Well, it's exactly what it is, what you say, which is... there was a lot of frustration, anger when this conflict began, because people were saying... President Trump promised he would never get in a war, and people pointed out who were more in favor of the war said, no, he always said Iran will not get a nuclear weapon, and that's what he'd said for years. Really going back even into the 90s, he was saying that shouldn't happen. And then now we're going through the reverse of this, where people are angry that he hasn't overthrown the mullahs, he hasn't done regime change in Iran, and we should remind people, President Trump's promise was Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. You and I were discussing before the show, at the start of his term, President Trump was touring the Middle East, and he was pointing out, we have learned from the past, we're not trying to remake every government.
We should play that clip. Here, I gotta find it. You threw me off my groove, because I wasn't ready to play that clip, but we do have that clip, and we should play it. This is, from right at the beginning of Trump 2.0, he tours the Middle East, and he issued a speech that I think is an all-timer. I think it's going to go down as an all-timer, but it sets the stage for some of the things he's talking about right now. SOT 29.
A new generation of leaders is transcending the ancient conflicts of tired divisions of the past and forging a future where the Middle East is defined by commerce, not chaos, where it exports technology, not terrorism, and where people of different nations, religions, and creeds are building cities together, not bombing each other out of existence. The birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions.
So that speech was important for many reasons, but it was the death knell of the neocons, okay? That was Trump saying, we are not going to be a neocon foreign policy movement anymore, and that was a good thing, okay? So now you might be wondering, but he attacked Iran. Well, to Blake's point, he always said Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. Remember, he took out Soleimani in Trump 1.0, okay, who was basically the chief architect of terrorism. Now, I was skeptical about these strikes. As a matter of fact, I was not pro the strikes in Iran. But, much like Charlie, I chose to say Trump has never gotten us embroiled in a quagmire forever war in the Middle East, and I don't think that's his objective right now. He's trying to achieve the objective of no nukes, no weapons, to destroy the Middle East, destroy Israel, destroy Europe, and he's achieved that goal, ostensibly. In theory, they're moving towards that goal. And here's the big difference. And President Trump kind of hinted at this. Actually, I think he hit the nail on the head in one of his earlier interviews today at the G7. This is the big difference with this deal and the JCPOA. No, it's not front loaded. There's no pallets of cash. There's no American money. That's true. But more fundamentally, the big difference between this deal and the JCPOA is President Trump himself. SOT 26.
Said 1.7 billion and hundreds of millions of dollars. They tried to bribe their way out of it. And you know what the Iranians did? They laughed at Obama and they said he's a stupid son of a... Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
It was actually, we were letting him go here in this first segment because he was making that point for us repeatedly. I thought it was very interesting. He was really going into the details about the strike that killed the previous supreme leader.
Trump
and I feel
was
like
right about Obama.
the implication throughout that is, by the way, we could 100% do this again to any of you. If we have the ability to track the supreme leader of Iran in that level of detail, you should adhere to this deal or I'm ready to bomb again. He said that too. If they don't finish this up in 2 months, we'll bomb them to hell again, he said.
SOT 30.
The text of the agreement now final, or are you still...
No, it's not final. It's a memorandum of understanding. And if I don't like it, we'll go back to shooting at them, dropping bombs on their head.
When do you expect the wording?
If I don't like it, if they don't behave, we'll go right back to dropping bombs right smack in the middle of their head. Okay? Because they've misbehaved for 47 years.
That is the difference. Now, you do not have to even support the war. Like I said, I was a skeptic. I didn't want us to go into Iran. I've made not made that a secret. But you have to also acknowledge objectively that this changes the calculus in a deal with Iran. Iran played Obama for a sucker. Why? Because they never believed that Obama was willing to use force. They can't say that about President Trump. President Trump has already used force. President Trump will use force again. He is not afraid to use force. Our military posture is not changing in the region. That changes all the calculus. That changes everything. And they know that our intelligence is so good that they can't move about freely if they start misbehaving. They will fear for their lives. So the choice is theirs. Do they want to have a prosperous economic region and zone and future for Iran and its people? Or do they want to get bombed again? They didn't have that same choice when President Obama was in office, offering them pallets of cash. Changes everything. Donald Trump is the reason this is not the JCPOA 2.0. Rob Schneider joins us now. Joining us now is actor, comedian, and author of You Can Do It, and that is Rob Schneider. Rob, welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show. Good to have you on the phone.
Thank you. Good to be here, man.
Listen,
how are you doing? I'm good.
We're doing great. We're doing great. I just wanted to just have you on to just commend you, sir, for the amazing support that you showed these pitchers, these giant pitchers, for standing up for their values. And you said something really powerful. You said, if they get fined, I'm going to help pay for their fines. We'll figure it out, and we will help you as well, Rob. We will get behind whatever efforts that we need to get behind. I know you said you will personally pay for it, but I think there's a whole country behind these pitchers that want to defend their Christian values. What inspired that,
Thank
Rob?
you. And I just want to say that. Well, I just want to say these aren't like these guys get the league minimum. So I mean, it's a good amount of money, but it's still they're living in California, so that's they're still like living in apartments and stuff. These guys aren't rich ball players. You're not talking about Ohtani.
That's right.
But what you have is first of all, can we make baseball straight again? I mean, we have enough gay sports. We've got
Totally agree.
The WNBA. We got figure skating. This gay stuff. What you won already, gay people. Why do you have to shove it in our face? And why do you get a month? Who agreed? Where was I don't remember voting for a month. Just have a parade. All I'm saying, just give us some heads up so we can make plans. So we don't have to, because it's a lot hanging out everywhere. So it's just enough in your face, forcing us to do things against our will, and forcing people, it's to wear a pride hat, and if they don't, they're somehow a bigot. So it's in your face, and the idea that somehow gay people are oppressed. It's like you won. You got gay marriage. You get the same rights as far as benefits. that was excluded you. I mean, so at what point do you just say enough? And at what point do we say, okay, it's a month, and then also we want to have drag queens in your kindergarten? It's like, enough with this. It is sick. It is twisted, and it is enough. I mean, gay rights has been perverted. Even gays will tell you that the trans community has totally taken over. And I mean, I knew something was up at the gay parade in New York when there wasn't one white gay homosexual that was a part of the Grand Marshal Parade. It was all this crazy, trans stuff, and it was these ball players are sweet, nice guys who love the Lord, and it's a beautiful thing. And so of course they're going to get attacked. And the idea that it's standing up and saying a Bible verse is automatically bigoted is just to show you how crazy and how leftist and what a lunatic wing that you have there in the Democratic Party.
Well, and the way they went about it, I think it was very well done, because all they did was attach a Bible verse that is related to rainbows, and they made it very clear. They kind of forced MLB and their other critics to unmask the agenda, that they come forward and say, yes, we are specifically requiring you to affirm this version of what pride is. You're not allowed to, you don't even have to, you're not condemning gays in any way, you're not condemning anyone. All you're doing is tweaking this in a little way in the direction of your faith, and they're swooping in and saying, we're on to what you're doing, and you're not allowed to do it. I think they went about it in a very wise way.
No, it was classy. And yeah, Blake's talking about they put Genesis 9:12-16, which is a Noahic covenant where God says, when you see a rainbow in the sky, we're promising not. God's promising not to flood the earth again, like He did in the time of Noah. So it was a very classy thing to do. And my point, Rob, and I think you were basically making this point, is that MLB is being the bigoted ones against Christians. And we're sick of this anti-Christian bias. And to your point, it doesn't just, it's not enough to tolerate. Now they make you accept it, they make you celebrate it, and then they make you participate in it. Your kids have to participate in it. It becomes the new civic religion of, like, everybody has to be proud of gay people. And it just becomes so all-consuming, in your face. As you said, they get a whole month. And then a couple Christians come out and put a Bible verse on their hat, and, oh, that's a line too far. It became so imbalanced.
It's the hypocrisy of it, because, these, ball players, baseball players as well, took a knee. And then you could look that up. They actually did do that. Not just the football players, but baseball players too. And none of them were reprimanded for taking a knee during the national anthem. So you have just a kowtowing to this particular extreme leftist ideology, and everyone. And if you don't comply and you don't go along with it, They want you to participate in it. And if you don't participate, so it's one thing you have your right. And now you just, instead of leaving people alone, now you're forcing people to participate. You're forcing them to be in this, to take part. And then that's where it steps over into a civil rights issue. And I'm tired of this Christianity being a doormat religion for everybody else's and stepping on it, and people not stepping up. And I'm also tired of evangelicals not voting. They have to step up. I mean, how do you get a real hateful, ugly human being like Ilhan Omar in Congress? Well, because the mosques tell 85, they tell their constituents to vote, and 93% of them will vote on a block. We have to have our pastors step up. They have to have our pastors get involved, because the idea of that somehow this isn't going to continue, and this isn't going to continue to erode our rights. Is an illusion, as you're seeing now. And, the Supreme Court already made a decision about, you can't force people to do something outside their deeply held religious beliefs, with the Colorado bakers who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple because they just refused to do it. That's their right. And, instead of finding another baker, they have to force their agenda on somebody else.
Rob Schneider, good man and a very funny man, and you're doing a good thing, Rob. We just wanted to support you in that. God bless you. Senator Josh Hawley is writing letters demanding answers from the MLB for penalizing Christian players for showing their faith. You've got obviously what Rob did, saying he's going to get behind them, pay their fines. And then you got the Attorney General of the state of Florida launching an investigation into anti-Christian bias by the MLB.
And I should note, by the way, that it's not like MLB is any random business. It is worth remembering MLB gets special carve-outs from Congress. Antitrust law doesn't apply to Major League Baseball and I believe other of our professional sports leagues. They're given a special carve-out from Congress, and Congress absolutely has the right to say, if we don't think you're adhering to the good of the American people, if you're pushing this very politicized agenda on your players, on your fans, we should be able to raise an eyebrow and ask, why are you getting all these special protections?
I totally agree.
And they get endless taxpayer money at the local and state level to build these stadiums that I will tell all of you absolutely do not work out along the bottom line. That is totally a subsidy to people who are already very wealthy.
But they're beautiful. They're cathedrals to the America's.
Okay, all right, Dodgers fan.
This is the reason that I get so upset and so passionate about this issue is because I am a diehard baseball fan. I love baseball. It is in my bones. I played it from the time I was 3 years old, played it in high school. I played it growing up. It's such a formative part of my childhood that I hate watching the MLB do this kind of crap. So they're trying to walk it back. I think they've been properly scolded, by the way. They're trying to say, hey, we didn't find them. We're just warning them. It's a standard operating procedure. Good. Back off. You've been properly warned. All right, hey, I want to finish some of what we were saying about this JCPOA. The JCPOA, of course, being Obama's deal. And the president, to his credit, has been ripping it. And he got out of it in 2018 because it was a roadmap to getting Obama. You know what they would do during the JCPOA? They would announce that they're going to come inspect some site, and they would give them a month warning, and then they would come inspect the site, and guess what? Everything had been moved very conveniently. All right, it was a terrible deal. It had no teeth. And this is the point. President Trump deserves a lot of credit here because I'll just go through some of the names that are ripping him to shreds right now for even attempting this deal, okay? Senator Lindsey Graham, calling it a nightmare for Israel. Senator Ted Cruz, who I like, has said he's deeply concerned about reports of the deal, especially any involvement of figures like Rob Malley, seen as a dove. Senator Roger Wicker, who's the Senate Armed Services Chair, he's a Republican from Mississippi. He labeled a rumored 60-day ceasefire a disaster. Okay? Mike Pompeo, former Trump Secretary of State, he compared the floated deal to Obama-era approach. Okay? That was just what we're addressing now. John Bolton, Mr. Walrus, who just did a plea deal with the DOJ, called it a big defeat for the U.S. Mark Levin strongly criticized the lack of transparency. To be fair, Mark is just asking to see the MOU. The president has said that he's going to read it himself. Okay? All of these people, and then you combine that with the slew of lefties that are calling this a big defeat for the U.S., that we lost a war.
Some are gloating over it.
Yeah.
Some people clearly just want Iran to win, and so they're going to say this because I guess they just hate America.
I don't know that they want Iran to win as much as they want Trump to lose.
A lot of them want Iran to win.
I think you're right. So, but here's the point. President Trump deserves a ton of credit here because he's resisting the swan song of the neocons. They want the old model, which is regime change. I could make the argument that the best thing that ever happened in this whole conflict is that you decapitated 40 or 50 of the top leaders without a full regime change. If there was regime change, who knows what would have happened? Would the entire Iranian country be forced into a massive civil war right now?
This is something that Charlie would talk about, that he would say, when you get regime change, we saw this in Iraq, that we threw out the government, and most of the people who died in Iraq were not killed by U.S. forces fighting insurgents or insurgents attacking U.S. forces. Most of the death in Iraq after we invaded it was Iraqis of one group killing Iraqis in another group.
Correct.
Attacking Christians, Sunnis attacking Shias, and you can easily imagine that happening. Iran is a multi-ethnic country. It's a country with secularists and Islamists and some people just stuck in the middle. That country full of mountains, full of tribes, can absolutely go to hell in a handbasket. And Charlie warned about that.
Well, and so this is what I'm saying, is that it was, a very possible outcome here that after the initial strikes, after the initial bombing, that the regime could fall. But it didn't. It held on. You got to give. They're not good people. I'm not pro the regime here. I'm just saying you got to give them some credit for holding on. Okay? Yeah, they did it in a brutal way. They killed 40,000 innocent protesters in January. Well,
Yeah,
guess
they
what?
did.
The protesters were probably scared to take to the streets again. But this gives you the chance to say, hey, we use force. We mean business. Don't mess with us again as President Trump drops some bombs on you. But at least the country is not thrown into mass chaos. I'll never forget when we had those Iranians come out. They were part of the diaspora in the lead up to this, and they were saying 80% of the population would support regime change. I'm not sure I at all believe that, first of all.
I think
but
people,
even if it's 20 or 30% that are regime loyalists, do you think those people are just going to go away? Do you think that they were, if the regime fell, that they were just going to go away? Or do you think they were going to form factions of militarized units to then attack whatever was put in its place? So I'm not saying I know what the right outcome is. I'm not saying that that the regime not falling is good. I'm just saying you could make the argument, okay? So maybe this gives an opportunity for the hardliners and the moderates to take their places within this new command structure that is sort of existing and surviving through this conflict, and maybe there is a real chance of having a better, more positive outcome in the end. But here's the deal: President Trump has rejected the neocon model, which was boots on the ground, which was never going to happen here. So I don't know what they want. That's the question. What do they want? Do you want American boots on the ground?
that is what they. No, I'll lay it out. That's what they want. What I think. Frankly, what happened with a lot of these people, I think this is what Lindsey Graham wanted, it's what Mark Levin wanted. They believed that they could sell President Trump on this will be easy, you can take out the regime with a strike, and maybe they thought that could actually happen, but they thought if it didn't happen, he's pot committed, they can go, well, you're already in, you might as well put boots on the ground. And you saw that. You saw the people saying, oh, just a few thousand troops on Carg Island, and the whole thing will fall from there. And if that had happened and it failed, they'd say, well, we already have boots on the ground. May as well go all the way to Tehran. I think people thought that would happen. And President Trump deserves credit for not going along with it, I think.
J.D. Vance deserves a ton of credit as well. He's been out front the last couple of days selling this peace deal to the American people, and I completely support it. I want peace. We want peace. It is not our job to regime change all over the world just because we don't like somebody, okay? This is a great deal for the American people. No nuclear, that was the goal. He accomplished the goal. Let's get out. Let's focus back here on the home front.